afternoon, everyone. Welcome to She's the Boss Radio Network. 24 hours, 7 days a week. We focus on topics to build, strengthen, inspire, as well as motivate men, women, youth from the home to the conference room and around our community. I am your host, the nurseologist, and you are here listening to the Nurses Lounge. Thank you for all your participation this week. I am so excited to be here this week. We want you to be a part of our show. And the way that you can be a part of our show is calling in at 443-272-5922. This is a very, very important show. It's called The Night Shift Nurse. How many night shift nurses do I have out there today? I am here to tell you guys, we're going to talk about this night shift. The night shift. We're going to talk about any gifts that people can get for nurses, maybe your wants, maybe your needs, maybe just right. I'm also going to talk about ICU nurses versus ER nurse. Which one are you? Yes, that's the hot topic for the day. We're going to do a lot of talking about nursing. We have students get ready to go to school that's going into the nursing field. And, we want them to feel comfortable. It's nothing like giving nursing students, the real deal about nursing. And when I say the real deal about nursing, I mean give them the inside scoop. We want them to be proficient as we are, and we really want to give them positive comments about nursing. I want to talk a little bit to you guys about why some people become nurses. Not just that nurses is the number one trusted occupation that's out here. Nurses, we really put in our work. That's the difference. Putting in the work. Everybody is not used to putting in the work, but when you put in the work, you get results. And that's what it's all about. It's all about putting in the work. And they get a little upset when we talk about different shifts, but it takes a special person, a very special person, to come up with ideas as to what's going on in the world and why we chose this profession. Being a nurse is not an easy job. And I feel some type of way when people say, oh, you chose to be a nurse, so go do your nursing job. No, guys, I just like to let you know, I didn't choose to be a nurse. God chose that field for me. He gave me the wisdom. He gave me the spirit. He gave me everything that I need in order to, be prosperous in my field. This is a career for me. This is not what you call a job. A job is where you go 9 to 5 and you want to be at home and you go to job and you do the job. And then you go home and you be complaining all day and all night like, I'm so happy that job over. No, this is a career. And I want nursing students to know that this is a career. If there's any nursing students out there, please let them tune into this episode this week. And if you guys would like to call into the show, again, the number is 443-272-5922. This is the nurseologist talking to you this week. Because we all have to be grateful to have someone that can, almost put their life on the line to make others feel well. And I would like to just let you know that I am a night shift nurse, although sometimes I work during the day, but night shift is my favorite shift. And what we need to do is we need to, do something extra special for those nurses that work overnight. So what I need you guys to do, I need you to get some people on the line on www.shesthebossradio.com. I need them on the line. I need them to call into the station so that we can have a back and forward conversation. That's what I'm looking for today. I'm looking for a conversation with some nurses, and not even nurses. If you just want to call in and tell me how good you had at your last experience at the doctor's office or with a nurse that you believe in that does good in the community, please, please call in so that we can shout that nurse out. So, in the meantime, let's go to this. Let's start this off by talking about the reason why some people become nurses. The reason why some people become nurses is because they know the top five jobs, especially with wages, is a nurse. Yeah, popping my collar right now, y'all. Popping my collar. Nurses make good wages. For instance, the average registered nurse earns more than 52,000 a year. Can you believe that? They earn more than $52,000 a year. Now, I believe that nurses should be making more than that. You know, some nurses make over $72,000 a year when they first start. It just depends on what's your career choice. When you go into a specialty, you have a better chance of making a little bit more money. You know, the amount of experience and the care that you give to people, you could never put a value on that. So, why is nursing a great career choice? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. There are several reasons why nursing is a good career choice. It's because it's a rewarding occupation where you get to, at some period of time, you get to see patients at their lowest and you get them back almost to their norm, but you help in the process of getting them back to their normal state before they came to the hospital or before they became ill. You know, I tell folks when they come to the hospital and they spend some time there, I always let them know that you may not be exactly where you were when you go home, but I can almost guarantee you that you'll feel a lot better than when you came into the institution. That is all I cannot guarantee anybody that they're going to be well. I can't guarantee anybody that the problem that they came in is going to be resolved. That is the greatest thing about being a nurse. And that's what they teach us in school. You can never promise any patient anything. What you can do is give them the medical instructions. You can be sure to educate them correctly according to their level of understanding, which is very important. That I find that's important on what we should do. So, let me give you a recap of what today's show is going to be about. Today's show is going to be about the night shift nurse. We're going to talk about some gifts that you can give to nurses. You know, some institutions don't allow nurses to accept gifts, but it is some things that you can do to get around giving nurses, you know, a little token of your thanks for caring for your loved ones. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to talk about the ICU versus a ER nurse. Now, these positions are called critical care positions, and each nurse have a um different things in their nurse's bag. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit about the difference between an ICU nurse and an ER nurse. There are some differences that I would love to talk to you guys about. And I would love for somebody to call in and ask me a question. Or if I have some friends out here that's looking at my page right now, if you guys could call in, I'm going to tell you the number. Once again, it's 443-272-5922. Call in and tell me why you became a nurse. And right now, we're getting ready to go to our first break. And when we come back, we're going to take a deep dive into these three topics this week on the Nurses Lounge, where nurses call the shots. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
She's the boss. Radio Network.
Beauty's in the eye. We complicate things when all along it's just perfect as it is. Beauty is from within. It's how you feel, not as how others see you. Skincare shouldn't be complicated. She's the Boss believes skin
Yes, this is the nurseologist here to give you everything that you need to know about nursing. Let me tell you a little bit about why I went into nursing. Well, I went into nursing because when I was younger, I used to go to this clinic in Baltimore, Maryland on Redwood Street, and it wasn't many folks in there that looked like me, but it was this one lady that was there who looked like me, and I used to always ask her questions. So every time I would see her, I would hope that she would call me to the back. When the other ladies that were there, they were nurses, and I'm quite sure they were well educated and knew what they were doing. But hey, I wanted the lady who looked like me to call me in the back, so if I had questions, she would answer all of those questions. So one day I went there and I asked her what was her job, what was her role. She had no problem with telling me what her job was, what her role was. She even told me I had to go to college to do what she was doing because by the time I got old enough to be a nurse, learning nursing at the hospital was no longer going to be there. She went to a program at University Hospital in order to become a nurse back then. So I would talk to her. I would tell my mom I was sick just so I can go to the clinic to see her. It was just too much when I was young. I was just a busybody. You know what a busybody is? That's the person that never stay out of anything. That's exactly who I was. So I knew that I had the gift of gab talking. That's why I have this show right here called the Nurses Lounge where nurses call us shots so we can get all the information we need to get out to the public. So today's show is based on working night shift. Yes, let's give those nurses who work night shift a round of applause. It takes a very experienced nurse with a lot of patience and a lot of tolerance to get over being a night shift nurse. Night shift is not an easy job. It will never ever be an easy job for anybody. But if you're that nurse that's used to staying up, or if you're that person that likes to stay up at night because if you're thinking about a business at night, that's when your your um your brain start being overworked, to get you in the mood to start thinking about what am I getting to? What type of business am I gonna operate? So that's why I came up with, that you need to get into it. So with that being said, let's hop into some gifts that you can get for those nurses, those nurses that do such a wonderful job for your patients. Let's talk about some of those. So I have a lovely, lovely list here. It says that, they have some cheat sheets for nursing. You go into the nurse stores, they have different cheat sheets to help the nurse get through her day. You might want to go pick up some of those and give it to the nurse as a little gift that can be used at the job. And see, that's the thing. When nurses accept gifts from families, it should be able to be used by the staff. Yes, it's a gift for the nurse, and yes, they can put in like some chocolates or send some flowers or something like that specifically for that nurse. But they must also send something that's going to be a gift to the whole unit. Now, that is what we should be doing when family members ask, oh, well, how can I give you something? They stopped that a long time ago with nurses accepting gifts because they found out that some families were given too much. Now, what is considered given too much? I'm not quite sure on how you can determine whether it's given too much or what's going on, but I do know that it is exceptionally special that you make sure that you get something for everybody on that unit. They have heavy duty badge reels. They can get you a badge reel, and they can also give you either a fruit basket, something that can be split amongst the unit. They can give you some chocolates from your favorite store, but you would have to share with your coworkers because it takes a village to raise a family, and it takes a team to work in nursing. No nurse can work totally by herself. Nurses should always have an assistant to help them and make everyone feel like they're a team. That is the important part of working in nursing. You have to make everyone feel comfortable with being able to care for patients, and not only that, care for you too. Why should you be the only one running around doing work when you have an assistant that's there and can help you? And that makes life so much easier on all of us, because one person shouldn't go home and say, "Oh, I'm so tired from working today. I had all of these patients." For me, my brain works like this: if I cannot help another person at work doing their task, then my job is not complete. And if you ask anyone who I work with, they'll tell you she rolls up her sleeves and she get into the work. It's no way that I can work on my own or solo in an institution unless I have minimal patience, and I might be able to get by. But I love working as a team because there's no I in team, which means that it takes a team effort to get it done. And when I say that, I mean my CNAs, I mean my secretaries, I mean therapy, the housekeeper, all of them are a part of the nursing team. It takes a team to run a hospital. It doesn't take I as in one person. And once people realize that, they'll start doing things a little different. The other thing that they can get you a coffee mug, the stainless steel coffee mugs that keeps your water cold and your ice in your bottle all day, or your coffee hot and it's hot all day. They can get those for you. Now, they do have personalized insulated tumblers that they can maybe get your name engraved on it, or get thanks from so and so family for caring for my loved one. They have compression socks. A lot of people don't think of gifts that you can give to nurses. Nurses will accept any gifts that you have as long as it's for the team. I'm going to say that again. They can get one specific gift for you, the person who cared directly for their loved ones, but they need to also send a gift for the team so that the team doesn't feel left out. Compression stockings, socks is something great that nurses should be wearing now, that we have gotten away from, but it's a great thing to get back into it. When your support holds, you get varicose veins. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Varicose veins. And I'm quite sure all the nurses, we know what they are, because you get that pain in the back of your knees, on your legs, and you got all these big thick veins running down. Yeah, if you wear support holes, they'll help reduce it. I'm not saying that it's going to stop it, because the Nurses Lounge radio show never diagnose anyone. We give you information that you can go to your primary care doctor to talk about. That is the importance about the Nurses Lounge, where nurses call the shots, but your primary care doctor will have to check you out to be sure that you can wear those things. When you go into the nursing store, they have ink pens, they have shears, they have stethoscopes. Those are inexpensive gifts that a family member can give to you. Don't be expecting a family member to give you $100 or $200 stethoscope. I think that is a bit too much to be given as a gift for an institution. Some people will say, "Oh, I'll take that gift." And that's really not the best practice. When you got your job, I'm quite sure at that job you talked a little bit about not accepting expensive gifts from families. If they want to send you a thank you, they can send you guys lunch or something like that. I know lunch usually costs a little bit money, but if they're sending it for the unit, then that makes a big difference. Um, if you guys like to follow me on social media, you can go to the Nurses Lounge radio show on Facebook. Um, and I have some other areas that you can go on and check out too. My Instagram page is magical underscore nurse. That is again magical underscore nurse. Or you can go under the Nurses Lounge radio show where you can see a lot of my posting that I usually do. And that would be wonderful if you go under there, the Nurses Lounge radio show on Instagram. So let's get back and talking about the essential tips for surviving the night shift. And when I come back from my coffee break, we'll talk a little bit more about, working the night shift. I'm telling you, working the night shift is not for the weak. Working the night shift is definitely for a brave nurse. You have people who are, I say seniors of night shift. That's me. I've worked 17 years in healthcare on a night shift. And for me, the only time that I get sleepy is around 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's when I'm drinking my coffee or I'm just up moving around. When I think I'm going to get sleepy, I get up and I start walking. That is the best time to get your exercise out when you're at work so that once you go home, you can wind down and be able to take, go to sleep for the night or call it your morning, but your night shift of getting some rest. Because people always laugh at me. They be like, Charlene, you just waking up? I'm like, sure. I just went to sleep at 9 o'clock a.m. Well, what time did you think I was waking up? When it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a really funny conversation when you tell somebody, oh, I just woke up and I woke up like this. Yeah, right. That's the funny thing. But when you work night shift and you get off in the morning, sometimes some people can go home and go straight to sleep. But once I get home, take a shower, brush my teeth, and get ready to go to bed, I'm plucking around the house doing something. So, with that being said, we get ready to go on this commercial break. And when I come back, we're going to talk about the essential tips for surviving night shift for real nurses. Hello, hello, family and friends. Welcome to the Nurses Lounge, where the nurses call the shots. I am your host, the nurseologist, and I am here to give you information as to how nursing is such a rewarding job. And yes, it's very rewarding. But when you work the night shift, like I said, you got to be strong. So, what I call the night shift is the night owl nurses. We're like an owl, we hooting all over the place. Working the night shift poses special challenges, as if it is a unique reward. When you start your night shift, whether it be 11 p.m. or 12 midnight, it seems like, your sleep wake hours are off because now during your sleep hours you're now awake. So a night shift nurse, they have problems, especially figuring out when to eat, when not to eat. um they snack at night, because usually if you work during the day you usually snack during the day. So sometimes you have to try to figure out your sleep wake cycle, what to eat. Try to eat healthy things, but sometimes you get tired of eating salads, lettuce, and almonds and peanuts and things like that at night. You want to just have a great meal and continue to do what you're doing. Night shift nurses, sometimes they have depression, and that's because of the sleep wake cycle is being interrupted. Like I said, interrupted. In the morning when you get off, you try to go home and you try to wind down on your drive home or wind down, period. But let me backtrack with those hours, because some night shifts are from 7 p to 7 a. Some shifts are from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. You have 11 p.m., no, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then you have the 11 to 7 shift, which is from 11 to 7:30, because they don't pay you for that lunch break you get. Yeah, how about that? They don't pay you for the lunch break, but you have to work the whole 12 and a half hours to get paid your 12 hours. Uh-huh. And then they have the 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. shift. So the night shift really varies, but night shift is what it is. So in the morning, I try to sleep as long as I can. Wake up for lunch, maybe around, sometimes you got to do your breakfast and your lunch at a different time. So what I usually do is I would eat my last meal maybe about 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I would do like a protein shake or something in the morning before I go home, which is considered breakfast before I go to sleep. So it won't be anything heavy. And then I would wake up like around 12 or 1 in the afternoon. I'll try to eat lunch, but sometimes I don't. I usually eat lunch around 3 or 4, and sometimes I even forget to eat lunch and I'll drink a shake. But if you're a nurse trying to lose weight, let me tell you, night shift is good because then you really get that sleep wake cycle and not all of that snacking, except for when you up running around at night when everybody else is asleep. Um, so that's what I usually do. Some nurses, they bring their own lunch. Nurses are bag ladies and men. If you see a nurse going to work, she got 1 or 2 bags with her. She got a purse. She got her bag with her stethoscope and all her essentials that she need for work. And then here she got this bag here with food, snacks, and everything she need because at work those vending machines are overpriced. When I went to a vending machine to get a bag of chips, and it was $1.35, I said, "Oh my goodness! Good thing I went and brought me a whole case and bring my own chips, cause ain't no way in the world I was gonna spend $1.35 for those chips." And mind y'all, I don't need chips, but if I see Utz potato chips, it's just I don't even want to talk about it. Now, when you're a night shift nurse, hopefully you're working 12 hours because if you work 12 hours, you only work 3 days a week. Now, if you're a nurse that work 5 days a week, it's a little harder. But if you work 3 days a week, sometimes the nurses either try to work every other night or they'll try to work 2 nights, a night off, and then work their third night. Or some nurses like me, if I work a 12-hour shift, I want to work all 3 of my days together, get it over with, and be off for 4 days. And on that fourth day, I'll be preparing to go back to work. So with night shift, it's a different in schedule when you work night shift. And the best thing to do when you work night shift is to get yourself a 32-ounce reusable water bottle so that you can drink water. Water will keep you hydrated and it keeps you going. They say don't drink coffee and tea because it's going to make you sleepy. I can drink coffee and tea any time of the day and I'll be fully ready to go. Especially if I get Starbucks. Everybody know if they see me with a Starbucks cup, they are in trouble because I'm ready to work. I come in with Dunkin' Donuts and it doesn't bother them much because I'm not as hyper. But I'm telling you, I don't know what Starbucks put in there. But I beg to differ when people tell me, Charlene, you just paying for expensive water. When I go to Starbucks, I get some strong coffee. Trust me, them coffee beans are good. That's one thing I do. I drink coffee. They tend to tell night nurses not to do coffee or caffeine and don't overdo it because it can affect your sleep when you try to go home. You know that crash, when you eat a candy bar during the day and you say I'm so sleepy I need a candy bar and you eat the candy bar and then for about 30-45 minutes you all hyped up and then all of a sudden boom, you feel like you just ate a brick and you can't get up and move. So you don't want to be dehydrated, be just as anxious as your patient and can't get to sleep or can't go do no work. You don't want to be nervous. You don't want your heart palpitating because this is all the signs that happen when you drink a bunch of caffeine and coffee at night. Some people get headaches. Sometimes caffeine help with a headache. So hey, every nurse have their own thing. A mistake new night nurses make is they start drinking coffee past 3 a.m. and then they wonder why when they get off at 6 or 7 in the morning they can't go to sleep. They can't go to sleep because they done slurped up all this coffee and the caffeine and stuff still working, so they can't get to sleep. So some nurses have to stop drinking coffee around 3 and instead drink water. They think if you drink water, you're going to be awake. Me, it doesn't work. I'm telling you, I drink coffee all day and all night, and I still get to go home and go to sleep. But working the night shift has decreased the amount of time people spend with their families. So that's why I usually place all my 3 days to work night shift together. So then I have more time to spend with my family. But everybody is different. And now I believe that the scheduler for night shift has really paid close attention to that. Now, the other thing I want to let you know is not just the nurse working night shift. You have the nurse, you have the techs, you have clerical support, you have doctors. So you have to be a little more sensitive to people who work at night because they have a challenge, and their biggest challenge is keeping their eyes open when they work nights. Yes, it is extra money, but I'm telling you, it's no more than $3 extra. So that extra that you don't get sleep is what they call it self compensating you with. So just take that the next time you tell a nurse, oh, you work extra or you work overnight so you get extra pay. Let them know how many cents, when I say cents, let them know how many more cents you get other than what they're getting. And I think they'll understand. Because all I get in a nurse arena is it takes a very special person to work night shift. And yes, it does. And I am one of those special people. And I'm popping my collar right now, guys. Yes. Um, Maybe a new nurse that want to go to night shift, maybe she should orient to nights before she decide to change her shift to night shift because there is some pros and cons, and yes, you have to get yourself acclimated to working night. Now, nurses all over the country are working night shift, but trust and believe me, they have planned for working that night shift because I'm telling you, it is not a good thing to just say, I want to go from a day nurse to a night nurse. Because when it says keep your eyes open, I've seen several nurses get fired for going to sleep. Not because they wanted to and not because they, you know, thought that working night shift would be easier. It was just because they may have other things to do with their family that they couldn't do before. So just think about that before you do night shift. It is higher pay, but it is keeping your eyes open overnight. And that sometimes it it makes a difference. It may be a slower and a calmer place and less people, no visitors, fewer orders, and but you got to think they turn the lights down too. There'll be some lights on, but they do turn the lights down because you want your patient to get a good night's sleep so that they can be able to do the things that they need to do in the morning. So that's something, and it's less traffic for you going to work. It's easier to do your day errands while everybody else is at work, and possibly give you more time off. And that's what I like about working 3 days a week, because now you have 4 days off and you can take care of all your personal business, or you can just do some self care. It's no better time to do self care than when other people are at work. So just keep in mind that being a night nurse, that you will lose some of your sleep during the day when the sun is out and everybody's being active and busy and loud. You'll be home sleeping. Someone else will have to pick up your kids, but you make sure you still get the same amount of hours of sleep that everyone else gets. Now, the end of this show, we're going to talk about ICU nurse versus ER nurse. They are two specialty jobs that, if those are what you're interested in, you have to prepare yourself. Now, some people tell nurses when they first graduate that if you are thinking about going into a critical care area, that you have to do med surge first, and I beg to differ. If you're wanting to go into a critical care area, I believe if you interview for that position to see if that's something, and do a share day, because a share day will definitely let you see visually what your day may look like. But if you're interested in doing emergency room or ICU nursing right from high school, right from nursing school, I think it would be a great thing for you to get your hands, to get your hands wet earlier in the game. Because if you go to med surge and you stay there longer than a year, I say about 76% of nurses who go into med surge find it a little difficult to go into one of the critical care areas once they've stayed in med surge for a long period of time. So if you are that nurse or that nursing student that's interested in going into a critical care area, do it. And I'm getting ready to go on my last coffee break with my Dunkin' Donuts cup so that we can talk about this ICU nurse versus the ER nurse during our last part of the show. nurseologist, and we're here on She's the Boss Radio Network. And I would like to let you guys know this is 24 hours, 7 days a week. Even though I'm only here on Saturdays, you can listen to this internet radio show any time of day or night, and you will be excited. So let's get into talking about ICU nurse versus the emergency room nurse. It is a difference in critical care and what you do. If you want to become an ER nurse or ICU nurse, there's only one question you need to ask yourself. Would you rather jump up? Would you rather jump out of an airplane or fly inside the airplane? I don't know. That's just an analogy that I have here with my notes in here. That's what they say. Because if you want to jump out of an airplane, then I guess you're going to be the ER nurse. If you want to fly the airplane, then you're going to be the ICU nurse. I think that's backwards. But anyway, let's talk about these nurses here. If you have a critical patient that comes to the hospital, they require a high level of thinking, problem solving, and especially the personality to go with it to handle high stress work environment. Now, both of these areas are considered the same. They are high stress work areas because these are the patients with the highest risk. When you're going to look at this and compare the two, it's specifically what your thoughts is and how you went through nursing school and about your adrenaline. Like what pushes your buttons. Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. Do you feel better when you're working in a chaotic or disorganized area, or if you feel better working in an area where it is all specific? You do A, B, C, and D. When you work in the ER, you can go from A to Z in 2 minutes. So you have to figure out which nurse do you prefer. Now, when you look at all of these TV shows, you have ER, you have all of this misconception as to what an ER nurse really do. If you really want to find out what an ER nurse do and you are a nurse, you can and even if you're not a nurse, you can volunteer, and then you can volunteer in that area where you want to work to see if that's something of what you want to do. Or as a nurse or new grad, you can always call that area to see if you can do a share day. When you do a share day, that means that you walk alongside of a seasoned nurse, and she can explain to you what her daily duties are, and you can see a little bit of her in action when she's caring for these critical patients on how swiftly it works, because in an emergency room you have to work quick. The emergency room usually stabilizes the patient so that they can send them to the ICU, where the ICU takes care of them until they become stable enough to go to a regular unit. So that's the difference between being an ER nurse. You got to figure out if you are that adrenaline junkie, as they call ER nurses, or if you're just that nurse that want to take charge. That's what I consider an ICU nurse as. An ICU nurse is a person that want to take charge, and they have to do things in order and make sure everything is crossed off and everything is dotted. A ER nurse, like I say, she worked from A to Z, and she could go in between and hit LM all at the same time. That is a nurse that takes care of a very chaotic area. However, some of the ER shows that come on, they show a little bit about what you do, but a ER nurse, 3 basic duties is triage and prioritize. A ER nurse have to make quick decisions on what's the best way to save a patient's life in a moment's notice. Often they're making these decisions while they're spontaneously working on the patient. 2 is stabilization. Whether it's clearing the airway, giving epinephrine shots, starting blood transfusions, the most important thing is to get the patient stabilized so that the physician can decide on what is needed next. And the third thing is assigning and moving on. Moving on, either getting that patient to an ICU area, whether it's ICU, PCU, MICU. All of those are critical ICU units. Some patients that leave the ER and have to be admitted, they have to go to a critical care unit instead of a med surge unit to be monitored for a little longer time. So I use the ER nurse is the first person that sees the patient after they've been after their injuries on the outside and they come into the facility. And so once the patient is stabilized for the ER nurse then send them not on their way, but send them to either med surge or to a critical care unit where they can get additional care. If you like excitement and adrenaline, you should look into being an ER nurse. Some of the skills and personality traits you'll need to be an ER nurse is calm under pressure, an ability to think quick, and good prioritizational skills. Now, what do an ICU nurse do? So, if you want to be a pilot of the plane, then you pay attention to details, the ability to handle several complex tasks spontaneously and calmly and steadily nerves. Then you could be an ICU nurse. When I told you an ICU nurse, they come in, they know A, B, C, they pay attention to detail, and they're right on every point of that patient's care. Whereas the ER nurse stabilizes their patients to keep them from dying, the ICU nurse is the one who keeps them alive. Oh, staying alive. Woo. So until they're out of the woods, and you do this. The ICU nurse working environment is exactly opposite of the ER nurse, which is chaotic and disorganized. Anything can happen in the ER at any given time, and you got to be right on your toes and ready to just jump in and do what you need to do. The ICU nurse provides round the clock acute care for their patients. They monitor vital signs, they run drips. In the ICU, it is uncommon to go in the ICU and see less than 4 drips running. And when I say drips, I mean IV infusion medications. Most of the patients in the ICU is on at least 4 drips. One of the drips is either lactated ringers or normal saline to keep them hydrated, because some of the patients are not able to eat or drink anything, or some of the patients are sedated. They coordinate care with the doctors and other nurses. Sometimes they even handle emergencies of their own, like the crashing patient. But they tend to be calm and focused with great attention and detail. So if you're a very detailed nurse, then ICU could be your choice of the field that you would love to go into. They tend to be calm, focused, with great attention to detail. Let's keep that in mind. Great attention to detail. They're capable of multitasking several different things at once. Known for their color coded medicine charts and checklists. Because when you have like 4 drips going, you need to know what medication went through that specific IV tubing, so that when you put in your next drip, it goes with the tubing that was used for that medicine, because some medicine cannot be ran through the same tubing. So that is why they work with color coding their medications and everything. Critical thinking skills are big. Being able to work as a part of a team. You have to be able to work as a part of a team in both areas. They run a tight shift with everyone playing time, note down to the finest detail. That means if a vital sign was supposed to be done at 2, it's done at 2. That means if some blood work was supposed to be like cardiac markers are supposed to be to the lab at a certain time, you have to make sure that those labs get to that lab at a certain time, because that drip is going to be titrated, which means that you'll be giving the patient either more or less of a drug, and it's all time. So, in these last couple of minutes, I'm going to talk to you guys about a trauma nurse versus an ER nurse. So a trauma nurse is different part of the ER wing. Both trauma nurses and ER nurses are working in the most critical patients in the hospital, whether they come in through the medic or whether they come in through their car. Both of these require the same ability to handle pressure, love chaos, adrenaline junkies or addicts, and they are superhuman ability to triage and diagnose and treat all at the same time. There's a difference between the two, however, it can be done with both of them working together. A trauma nurse is seeing the patients that are at their worst, whereas the ER may be conscious and maybe can talk to you, but a trauma patient is likely barely clinging to life. That means you really got to have your critical thinking skills on point. After that patient has been stabilized in trauma, they may go to the ER where they can do further critical care, or they may go to an ICU unit or something. It just depends how stable that person is. Some of the trauma nurses and the ER nurses are two team members playing the same game and each playing the same role. Now, the question is, can an nurse work in the ER and can an ER nurse work in ICU? My thoughts is no. A ICU nurse um works do not work good with chaos. A ER nurse can work with chaos, but an ER nurse may not know every drip that's being hung. So for me and just me and my thought process, a ER nurse and an ICU nurse are special particular nurses, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit why. A ER nurse work in chaos, disorganization, fast paced, high energy, a team player like a soldier in a battle. A ICU nurse, controlled, organized, calm, but still thinking high stakes, detail, use charts, lists, and multitask. So for organization, a ER nurse is a person with an office that looks like a desk exploded on itself, especially when they know exactly where everything is in a messy pile. An ICU nurse, everything on her desk is in place within 2 inches away from everything. That means papers are filed in folders, pen in a holder, detailed, color coded calendar on the desk, mapped out what to do, and no problems. Career goals. There are goals to prioritize your initial treatment as an ER nurse and an ICU nurse. The patient is there until they are out of the woods. And thank you guys for sticking here with me while I talk a little fast about ICU versus ER nurses. It doesn't matter which one feels your need as a nurse is where you should be. This is the nurseologist signing out from the show this week. Come back next week on Saturday and catch the show before my show that starts at 1, and then we have one that starts at 12. Start with us at 12 noon and go with us till 3 p.m. Thank you.